Ladies and gentlemen, Angel Gurria, Secretary General of the OECD, and Kim Dong-yeon, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Economy and Finance, and our VIPs are now entering the hall. Please welcome them with a big round of applause.
The world is changing, and we need new ways of measuring, thinking, and acting to foster people's well-being. We will explore how to shape a better future for all. 6th OECD World Forum. The OECD World Forum was born out of the shared belief that the ultimate aim of policy should not be higher GDP, but instead focus directly on improving people's quality of life and well-being. Under this context, in 2014, South Korea created its Quality of Life Index, in part as an outcome of the 3rd OECD World Forum. The world is facing a paradox. The size of economies have grown, but the impact on people's life is not always clear-cut, especially in a world of environmental damage and growing social and income inequalities. The widening gaps between social classes, generations, and people with different education levels have led to societies with deep fault lines. In this new landscape, decision makers need to think and act creatively. We need to anticipate new risks and opportunities. We need to open up to new approaches and new forms of partnership and collaboration across sectors. by ensuring the well-being of all members of our societies. We can make a better future for all. The 6th OECD World Forum will look at some of the main trends that will impact well-being in the next 10 to 20 years, from the perspectives of thought leaders and futurists from governments, businesses, civil society, and academia from around the world. We will examine the opportunities and risks brought about by the digital transformation and seek ways to respond to new problems. We will discuss governance approaches that can restore trust and strengthen cooperation between government and citizen in our complex and interconnected world. We will also look to the private sector for ways in which businesses can help improve the quality of people's lives and create a sustainable future. What will life be like in 20 years' time? By bringing you all together, the experts and practitioners gathered today, the 6th OECD World Forum will help shape this better world by mapping out the future of well-being.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 6th OECD World Forum on Statistics, Knowledge, and Policy. My name is Jo Ju-yeon, and I am deeply honored to be here with you this morning. Before beginning the inaugural session, I'd like to introduce those of us who are joining us this occasion. When your name is called, please rise, and ladies and gentlemen, please greet them with a big round of applause. First of all, we have Mr. Angel Gurria, Secretary General of the OECD. And we are also graced by Her Royal Highness, Princess Petra Laurentienne of the Netherlands. We also have the presence of Mr. Joseph E. Stiglitz, Professor of Columbia University. Our gracious host, Dr. Kim Dong-yeon, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Economy and Finance. And another one of our hosts, Dr. Kang Shin-wook, Commissioner of Statistics Korea. From the host city, Mr. Park Nam-chun, Mayor of Incheon Metropolitan City. And also, thank you for attending ambassadors and commissioners of statistics from countries to the Republic of Korea. Thank you once again. And once again, I extend my deepest appreciation to you for your attendance this morning. And ladies and gentlemen, we'll now commence the inaugural session with the opening remarks by Dr. Kang Shin-wook, the Commissioner of Statistics Korea. Ladies and gentlemen, please greet him with a big round of applause.
존경하는 앙헬 구리아 OECD 사무총장님, 그리고 발표와 토론을 해주실 각 분야의 전문가 여러분, 그리고 다양한 역할을 갖고 이 자리에 참석해 주신 내외 기빈 여러분, 제6차 OECD 세계 포럼에 참석해 주신 여러분을 진심으로 환영합니다. 그리고 이번 포럼이 성공적으로 진행될 수 있도록 오랜 기간 공을 들여주신 OECD와 인천시 관계자 여러분들께도 깊은 감사를 드립니다. 통계, 지식, 정책에 관한 OECD 세계 포럼은 삶의 질에 대한 새로운 접근 방법과 측정 방식을 논의하는 회의입니다. 이번 6차 OECD 세계 포럼의 주제는 미래의 웰빙입니다. 이번 포럼에서는 정부의 거버넌스에 대해 심도 있게 연구하고 디지털화를 이용한 새로운 측정 방법에 대해 논의하며 삶의 질과 지속 가능 발전에서 기업이 차지하는 중요성과 역할에 대해서도 논의할 것입니다. 이러한 논의 과정을 통해 전 세계가 공감하는 삶의 질을 증진하기 위한 방안을 찾을 수 있을 것이라고 확신합니다. 통계는 사회 현상을 분석할 수 있는 가장 객관적이고 과학적인 도구입니다. 정확한 통계를 통해 사회 발전을 측정하고 통계를 지식으로 전환하여 근거 기반 정책을 수립할 수 있습니다. OECD 세계 포럼은 과거 5차례 회의를 통해 삶의 질 증진을 위한 웰빙 정책은 웰빙의 측정에서 시작됨을 보여주었습니다. 특히 지난 3차 포럼은 발전 측정, 비전 수립, 생활의 향상이라는 주제로 2009년 대한민국에서 개최되었습니다. 이때 회의를 계기로 OECD 등 베터 라이프 인덱스를 그리고 대한민국 통계청은 삶의 질 지표를 개발하여 발전시켜 왔습니다. 앞으로의 사흘 동안의 논의가 지식과 감동을 전하는 특별한 시간이 되길 희망합니다. 대한민국에서 다시 한번 OECD 세계 포럼을 개최하게 되어 영광입니다. 제6차 OECD 세계 포럼의 개최를 선언합니다.
Thank you, Dr. Kang. And next, Dr. Kim Dong-yeon, Chair of the Preparatory Committee of this forum and Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Economy and Finance of the Republic of Korea, will deliver his welcome remarks. Please welcome him with a big round of applause.
Good morning, Secretary General Angel Korea, Her Royal Highness Princess Petra Laurentin, Professor Joseph Stiglitz, Jeffrey Sachs, Mayor Bang Nam-chun of Incheon Metropolitan City, Commissioner Kang Shin-wook of Statistics of Korea, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to welcome you to the OECD World Forum and Incheon City. How appropriate it is that Incheon, one of the most futuristic smart cities in the world, is hosting the OECD World Forum, where we have the opportunity to discuss the future of well-being. As you may know, the G20 summit will be held later this week in Buenos Aires. One of the agendas there, putting people first, is well connected with the forum's theme of the future of well-being. The similarity in the topics indicates that the head of states are very concerned with this issue. I am more than happy to be engaging in both issues, starting with this forum. Personally, I must admit it is most opportune as well. I am getting on a plane immediately following this forum to attend the G20 summit, and it's only about a 30-minute drive to Incheon Airport. For this, I would like to thank Secretary General Korea again, Mayor Park, and Commissioner Kang for organizing the forum here in Incheon as the host city. Never in the modern Korean history have citizens and media been so captivated by a series of statistics that is released by Statistics Korea. Can you guess what they are? One, which is released every second Wednesday of the month, is the statistics on employment. The other, which is announced each quarter, is the income distribution index. Both sets of numbers, which are key component of OECD's Better Life Index, make the headline news each and every time they are released. The growing public interest in these statistics can be attributed to the current unemployment and income distribution situation in Korea. Let me share a few numbers. Korea's macroeconomic indicators, including growth and export, have been robust. Korea recorded a 3.1% economic growth last year, and our export reached an all-time high accumulated volume of $505 billion just from January to October of this year. What an impressive set of numbers. If we look at on the other side of a coin, however, the increase in increase in employment, which grew annually by more than 300,000 people on average since the global financial crisis, has registered less than 100,000 people from this January to October. Income distribution statistics are also concerning. The gap between the richest 20% and the poorest 20% has widened continuously over the last 3 quarters. In the past, people used to focus mostly on the country's growth and export numbers, but since have changed recently. Korean citizens today are much more interested and concerned with employment rate and income distribution indicators than any other macroeconomic indexes. This is a strong signal that the quality of life and the well-being of people are being valued highly. And this trend is parallel to OECD's efforts, including the development of BLI to enhance people's well-being. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is remarkable that in just a matter of a few decades, Korea has gone from an absolute impoverished country to ranking 12th in GDP and 6th in export around the world. On the other hand, our progress with the quality of life is nowhere near our economic development. For example, in BLI ranking, Korea actively dropped from 24th place in 2012 to the 29th in 2017. To tackle this issue, Korea's new administration initiated a paradigm shift of economic policies that is aligned with the philosophy of OECD's BRI. One of the key pillars of the economic policy direction is inclusive growth. It aims to address worsening income distribution, widening polarization, and declining social mobility. More specifically, inclusive economic policies, including increasing household income, developing social safety nets, and investing in human capital. One point I would like to highlight is another pillar of Korea's economic policy direction: innovative growth. In other words, this is a creative destruction in the market and systemic reform in every facet of the national economy. In that sense, to enhance the quality of life and future of well-being, innovative growth is inevitable. To achieve this, Korea has implemented various innovative growth policies, such as cultivation of innovative ecosystem, startups and entrepreneurship, deregulation, and education and labor market reform. We have also focused our public investment on building a platform economy, including AI, big data, blockchain, and hydrogen energy. These reforms will increase effectiveness and productivity through innovation in all social and economic aspects. Eventually, they will be the backbone for the enhancement of quality of life and future of well-being. I believe that innovation and future of well-being are inseparable. What I would like to suggest is that the linkage between the two gets more actively discussed at the forum. I would also like to ask the OECD to pay even more attention and provide policy implications for the development. Distinguished guests and ladies and gentlemen, Korea is a unique country in a sense that we have achieved a miraculous economic growth within a short time period, and that people's interest in the future of well-being has never been higher before. In this context, it cannot be more appropriate to hold the OECD World Forum here in Korea this year. Also, moving forward, the Korean government hopes to share our experience and knowledge gained from the two pillars of our policy directions with the international community. Taking this advantage, taking this opportunity, I'd like to express my gratitude to the OECD for its leading role in not only developing the BRI, but also spreading knowledge on promoting a better life. I hope the OECD World Forum will be an excellent opportunity to link various statistics and knowledge into policies. This occasion will be essential to the future of well-being around the world. Today, we celebrate the 6th OECD World Forum. Korea is the only country to have hosted the event twice in the forum's history. If Korea gets another chance to host this wonderful event again, please know that we will welcome you with open arms anytime. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Dr. Kim, for your kind words. Now, ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to introduce Mr. Angel Gurria, Secretary General of the OECD, for his keynote address. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome him with a big round of applause.
Deputy Prime Minister, dear friend Kim Dong-yeon, dear ministers, distinguished guests, Joe and Jean-Paul and Princess Laurentienne, and all the teams, and especially the OECD team today, led by Martine Durand, the directors of the OECD. I wonder who is minding the shop in Paris today, because everybody is working here. But so dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, Ambassador Sharok, thank you very much for representing the our ambassadors. Jeff Sachs, part of the usual suspects, as we call it. Every time they want to gather a round of people for a panel, they say Mr. Gurria, Mr. Sachs, or Mr. Sachs and Mr. Gurria, and they welcome to the 6th OECD World Forum on Statistics, Knowledge, and Policy, and I stress the policy part. Allow me to begin by thanking Statistics Korea, Commissioner Kang Ching-wook, for the excellent cooperation in organizing and co-hosting this event. And of course, thank you also to Deputy Prime Minister Kim Dong-yeon. This forum would not have been possible without the general support of the Ministry of Economy and Finance, like many other instances of cooperation between the OECD and Korea. So Thank you, Deputy Prime Minister. Thank you, Minister. Korea has consistently positioned itself at the leading edge of societal and technological change. Nowhere is that more visible than here in Incheon, an ultra-modern, forward-looking city by the sea. And I'd like to thank Mayor Park Nam-chun for the warm welcome to this city. Now, we've come very far since the first World Forum in Palermo, in Italy, 14 years ago. The OECD has not only developed new well-being metrics on GDP and beyond. We call it GDP and beyond because those people say, you know, beyond GDP, think like we're leaving GDP behind. But the idea is, of course, we're going GDP and beyond because you have to kind of include all the possible metrics. The Better Life Index, now you say BLI and everybody understands what we're talking about. You know, everybody knows that it's the Better Life Index and it has gained citizenship, and we owe that to the work of all of you here. It is also mainstream well-being across every aspect of our work. The new approaches to economic challenges, so-called NAEC, the inclusive growth initiatives. And I was delighted yesterday when I had an interview with President Moon Jae-in, who said that we're promoting the inclusive state. They wanted Korea to be the inclusive state. And I said, well, this is, you know, just the right way of approaching the matter. And that is that using all the policies, all the resources of the state to make for more inclusive policies. The OECD Action Plan on the Sustainable Development Goals, the Going Digital project, the Sustainable Development Goals, the commitment to leave no one behind. All this just shows the extent to which going GDP and beyond has now become global, has now become part of the culture. However, we are in the midst of a very complex moment for international cooperation. Our countries face important cross-border challenges: digitalization, climate change, demographic change, just to mention a few. And at the same time, in an era of overwhelming information and the proliferation of fake news and unfounded political statements, we need to keep strengthening and modernizing our statistical tools and capacities. Facts, facts, facts. We have to stand strong, including at the multilateral level, to keep pushing our measures, to keep pushing our indicators, to inform on real people's conditions, GDP and beyond. This forum focuses on three critical trends that will determine the success of countries in delivering well-being: the digital revolution, the new modes of governance, and the role of the private sector as an important actor for ensuring sustainable and inclusive well-being. Let me comment on these briefly. Digitalization is touching almost every aspect of our lives. New technologies are transforming how we engage with the labor market, with society, with public services. Recent OECD research has found that around 1/2 of all the people in the OECD have accessed public services of health online, services of information online, services of different types of quality provided by the public services in different ways, either municipal or regional or state or national, online, 1/2 of the population. Digitalization is enabling 1/4 of all the workers in the OECD to work remotely. E-health technologies have the potential to transform patients' experiences and health outcomes. But it is also exposing people to new risks in terms of privacy, cybersecurity, misinformation, and addiction-forming content. Children are particularly vulnerable. OECD data has found that a quarter of the 15-year-olds spend, on average, more than 6 hours a day on the internet on any given weekend. And around 1 in 10 say that they have been a victim of cyberbullying. All very alarming. In terms of the future work, digitalization is bringing disruption that will impact well-being. 14% of the jobs across the OECD are estimated to be at high risk of automation. And an additional third of all the jobs are likely to change significantly in the way they are carried out. And of course, the low-skilled are most at risk. This means basically 1/2 of the workforce is going to suffer some kind of disruption because of the advance of technology. These trends present challenges for well-being, which is why the OECD has identified indicators, experiences, integrated strategies, and innovative policy practices to harness the digital revolution for growth and well-being through our new job strategy, our national skills strategies, our framework for policy action on inclusive growth. Now, the question of governance is just as complex and just as important, just as challenging. Ensuring that no one is left behind will also pay huge trust dividends. Trust dividends. The legacies of the crisis is slowdown in growth or negative growth for many years, and a big destruction of jobs and a growing inequalities, and the question of destruction of trust. So we're talking about here that ensuring that no one is left behind will pay huge trust dividends and enable new modes of governance for a complex world. Trust is essential for well-being and governance. Trust in government, trust in public services, trust in the authorities, trust in safety standards, trust in regulations, trust in the banks, the global economic system as a whole. Trust has plummeted. Only 43% of the citizens in the OECD trust their governments. And in more than half of OECD countries, trust in government has fallen. And actually, it did not start with a crisis. It started long before that. This trust breeds a feeling of being powerless, of being disconnected from society. 1/3 of the people in the OECD feel that they do not have a say in what their governments do. To restore trust, governments need to invest in the regions and the places that have been left behind. They also need to take account of the less well-measured aspects of well-being: dignity, respect, recognition, and address the challenges involved in measuring. It is by exploring these issues that we will find tools, that we will find modes of action that will empower the citizens and they restore their sense of being in control, of my life. And last but not least, the question of the key role which the private sector plays in shaping people's well-being. We need businesses on board. The discharge of corporate responsibilities will help define our success for the future of well-being. Companies that focus on the well-being of their workers, of their consumers, of their suppliers, of the environment, and of the communities in which they operate are visionaries. More, however, needs to be done. One has to improve corporate governance, strengthen responsible business conduct. Tools such as the OECD G20 Principles of Corporate Governance, or the OECD Guidelines on Multinational Enterprises, or the OECD Due Diligence Guidance for Responsible Business Conduct, are all helping thousands, perhaps millions of firms to make important strides forward. Now, just 2 weeks ago, in partnership with BSR, Danone, and Jeffrey Sachs, we launched the OECD Business for Inclusive Growth platform. We call it BIG, Business for Inclusive Growth. It should facilitate the dialogue between companies and governments and promote a business model that places people's well-being at its heart. We have been working also with the business community on a project for measuring the impacts of business on well-being. And that is a key pillar of the platform. And I salute the representative of BIAC, of the Business and Industry Advisory Council, Mr. Russell Mills, and of course of the TUAC, of the Trade Union Advisory Council of the OECD, Monsieur Abad. Now, let me say that we started, of course, on the inclusive growth with governments. That is the obvious place to start. That is where the policies have to emanate from. We then invited the mayors to join, and we call this association Champion Mayors for Inclusive Growth. Why? Because 75% of our populations live in cities, and therefore enlisting the mayors is very important. New York, Paris, then Seoul, and we have invited the mayor of Incheon to join us. But then the question, of course, of business. Business, so crucial to be able to succeed in this inclusive growth approach. So dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, now I wanted to hold this up. This is Beyond GDP, measuring what counts for economic and social performance. In the very good video that we saw before this started, it had this famous phrase of Robert Kennedy that said that GDP counts for everything except what is really important in life, or something like that. Joe Stiglitz and Jean-Paul Fitoussi and Martine Durand have now refreshed, renewed this Beyond GDP. They also edited a book with many, many contributions about the same subject, which is also available to you. So let me thank you and let me congratulate them for this effort. Now, dear friends, this forum is about the future. It is about exploring where we could find ourselves in 5, 10, or 15 years. Therefore, I encourage you all, speakers and participants, to think through what the future could look like when we're talking about well-being. Ask yourself how the world could look different from today and different from what we are already expecting. Adopt a strategic foresight mindset. Imagine a range of plausible future scenarios to help us see beyond our current assumption. By exploring the future, and its inevitable surprises, we can generate new thinking about the measures and the policies that are needed to improve well-being in a rapidly changing and very, I would say, increasingly uncertain world. In the words of the North American novelist William Gibson, he said, quote, "The future is already here, it's just not evenly distributed," unquote. We have to ensure that new technologies benefit everybody. This means empowering people with skills and opportunity. It means making well-being the ultimate goal of our policies. And as the world changes around us, we need new ways of measuring, but also new ways of thinking, and perhaps most importantly, new ways of acting. We need strengthened international cooperation and coordination, not just on the policies themselves, but on how we measure the success of those policies based on their impact on well-being. The OECD stands ready to help governments and businesses shape the future of well-being by designing, developing, and delivering better data, better statistics, better knowledge, and better policies for better lives. Thank you very much.
Thank you once again, Mr. Gurria, for that insightful keynote address. And now, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Moon Jae-in, the President of the Republic of Korea, has sent a video to congratulate the opening of the 6th OECD World Forum. So please direct your attention to the screen.
제6회 통계 지식 정책에 관한 OECD 세계 포럼의 개최를 축하합니다. 앙헬 구리아 OECD 사무총장님과 라우레틴 네덜란드 왕자 빈, 노벨상 수상자인 스티글리츠 교수를 비롯한 130여 명의 연사와 내외 기빈 여러분 반갑습니다. 한국의 관문 인천 송도에 오신 것을 환영합니다. 내외 기빈 여러분, OECD는 지금 지구촌의 삶을 바꾸어가고 있습니다. 더 나은 삶을 위한 더 나은 정책을 기조로 인류의 삶을 향상시키기 위해 노력하고 있습니다. 사회 발전과 삶의 질을 객관적으로 측정할 수 있는 새로운 지표를 개발한 것은 매우 의미 있는 일입니다. 양적 성장 중심의 정책이 경제 불평등과 소득 양극화를 심화시켰고 주거, 안전, 직업, 의료, 교육 환경에서도 불평등이 커지고 있음을 알 수 있었습니다. OECD의 이러한 노력은 각 나라의 정책 당국자에게 큰 영향을 주었습니다. 정책의 초점을 경제성장에서 국민의 삶으로 옮기고 이를 위한 정부의 역할도 강화했습니다. 내외 기빈 여러분, 최근 한국 정부는 포용국가를 새로운 국가 비전으로 제시했습니다. OECD가 추구하는 지속가능한 포용적 성장과 같은 취지입니다. 성장의 혜택을 모두가 골고루 누리는 포용적 성장을 이루고 국민 한 사람도 차별받지 않는 포용적 사회로 나아갈 것입니다. 이번 포럼의 주제, 미래의 웰빙도 함께 잘 사는 포용국가를 통해 이루어질 것입니다. OECD는 지난 5월 포용적 성장을 위한 정책 실행 기본 체계를 채택했고 한국에 적용해보는 연구 사업을 추진하기로 했습니다. 한국의 사례가 포용성 정책을 추진하는 나라들에게 도움이 되길 희망합니다. 그동안 OECD 세계 포럼은 인류에게 새로운 화두를 던지고 정책 방향을 모색했습니다. 세계가 함께 발전하고 함께 행복을 누리는 미래를 위해 이번 포럼에서 다양한 상상력과 지혜가 모아지길 기대합니다. 감사합니다.
Please give Mr. President another big round of applause. Thank you very much. And another deep thank you for President Nguyen for sending his congratulatory message. And now, ladies and gentlemen, Her Royal Highness Princess Petra Laurentian of the Netherlands will now deliver her keynote speech titled, Preparing a More Responsible World for Future Generations. Now, she's been acting as a global advocate for literacy and child well-being. She's now coming up to the stage. Please welcome her with a big round of applause.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I am truly delighted to be at this global forum at a time of great transition and even disruption. And at a time like this, it's hugely important that we start sharing best practices, exchange ideas, and share perhaps not what we know, but share what we don't know, and explore new ways. And looking at the program, there's an impressive number of sessions, and the multitude of topics show that it is a complex issue looking at well-being of people. Obviously, looking at the challenge of looking what the indicators are of well-being. And we know, as was mentioned before, that we have to look beyond metrics, measurements, and models. Because well-being is about people. And it's not about people on paper, it's about real people. And real people are about real lives, real feelings, and real needs. And I can imagine for all the statisticians and the economists in the room, the problem with real people is that they're unpredictable. So what do we, as perhaps people looking for predictability, what do we need to understand about people, what their needs are in order to find the right interventions? And as OECD Chief of Staff Gabriela Ramos said at the OECD Ministerial Council meeting in May this year, she said, if we want inclusive growth, we need to put our people first. And I will share a few thoughts on that. For me, putting people first is about humanizing policymaking. So what does this mean? We need to move from numbers to human insights. That people are the starting point of our thinking and not merely the outcome or thinking in terms of a target group or an entity on paper or the focus of a top-down approach. If we want to grasp real well-being, it's about feelings and insights in real life of real people. I'll give you 3 examples. First about loneliness, then about the well-being of children, and then about illiteracy. When you look at loneliness, 6% of people above 75 years old across the EU suffer of feelings of loneliness. Now we know that loneliness is deadlier than obesity, that 29% of the people have a higher risk of heart failure and 30% higher risk of cancer. Now we are measuring loneliness at the moment on numbers based on living alone, measured by the quantity of contacts that people have and not by the quality of contacts. And yet, when you talk to people who are lonely, which I have the fortune of doing very often, they tell us it's not about being alone, but it is about the feeling of not mattering to other people, not mattering to society, about not being useful. The question is, how do we measure that? And if we just look at the contacts, we might be measuring the wrong thing. About children's well-being, the Netherlands prides itself in the world ranking as having one of the happiest people and one of the happiest children in the world. And it's based on statistics of freedom of movement and short school days. Who doesn't want to have short school days? And yet, how do we tally that 1 in 4 children in the Netherlands in primary schools suffer from stress? And it's their own stress, but it's also absorbing the stress of their parents, which we have now gathered in discussion and in dialogue with the children. We also know that 19% of the millennials in the Netherlands suffer from burnout, and digital issues play a big part of this. Now, if we're not delving deeper into the well-being of people and understanding what this sentiment actually is, we might be measuring the wrong thing. We might be measuring happiness in terms of short school days, i.e. looking at systems and not actually finding the real sense of stress. And we haven't even started to look at the stress built up during the first 1,000 days of a child. And then finally, illiteracy. In Europe, 1 in 5 people suffer from lack of reading and writing skills to participate fully in society. And when we think of people suffering from illiteracy, we see a failure in language skills or a lack of language skills. But actually, and I've had, the fortune of talking to hundreds and hundreds of people who lack those skills, especially in digital societies like in Europe and across the world, what people actually feel is shame. How do we measure shame? So what we did in the Netherlands, where we used to have a system and we're used to have the intervention where we built schools of knowledge in order to address the lack of language skills, and we found out that we spent millions and millions of euros on the wrong thing, because we were actually building a system and an intervention based on the lack of language skills. And what we did, we started this from a small scrap piece of paper, and we said, what if we build a system based on the feeling of shame? And that we organized language learning around shame. And we managed with 10 times less money to achieve 10 times more people just by building a system and interventions built on the feeling of shame. So we can actually take the inner sense of well-being to start our interventions in a different way. For me, humanizing policymaking is also about measuring invisible drivers. As was mentioned before, the Beyond GDP report says if we measure the wrong thing, we will do the wrong thing. And I would add, if we define the problem the wrong way, we start measuring things the wrong way, and then we start doing things the wrong way. So human insights should also determine how we define the problem. Again, take lonely people. If we don't start at the beginning with the sense of feeling, a sense of lack of belonging and feeling that you don't matter, we might be starting to look at the wrong thing. So invisible and intangible feelings like shame and fear, lack of belonging, lack of self-worth, they should be the starting point of our thinking. Now, how do we get to that? We have to unravel those feelings. We have to get to understand that lonely people feel they don't matter. And like a lady called Julia said to me, she feels that when she's gone, nobody will miss her. That is well-being. So you have to read between the lines, you have to start clustering those feelings as a basis to develop your indicators. And one last tip. We tend to think of people as target groups, and we cluster them in groups of age and gender and socioeconomic status and culture. But we've come to find in the model that we developed in the Netherlands that we have to start looking at senses and feelings across those different groups. So we have to unravel the shared feelings of well-being, which goes across all of these groups. So what does this mean to you, statisticians, highly educated individuals, And probably when I look at this room, there's more PhDs in this room than many other places in the world. I think it will demand a huge amount from you. And the toughest prerequisites of thinking in this way, of humanizing policymaking, is that you have to let go of thinking that you have the answer. You have to be truly and deeply curious about real people. It will have to be a certain sense of humility. You have to be humble. You have to be real. And it might be slightly uncomfortable and unsettling that you, in a way, have to unlearn what you have learned as statisticians. And realize, perhaps, that you live and that we live in a bubble of highly educated people who have a good life. But if we want to understand real people, we have to put ourselves in their shoes. And I believe that the good news is that all we need to do is enter into a true and safe dialogue with citizens who are living those lives that we want to explore. And we can do that. And this is what I do every day, unraveling many of the SDG issues, people in poverty, people in debt, people with low income, and understanding what they need in order to help with the energy transition, but also people in diversity and inequality, understanding what they feel as input into policymaking. So I'd like to do something that hopefully will set the course for the rest of the day. And I would like you to close your eyes and put yourself in the shoes of somebody who might be very distant from you from a feeling perspective. And close your eyes and put yourselves in the shoes of somebody who cannot read, who cannot write. Now walk through your day. This person goes to the bank and sits and waits to open a bank account, if they can open a bank account. And the person behind the counter may not actually understand that this person cannot read or write, if it's done in person at all, because many of the things are done online. Think of this person taking public transport, but not knowing how to get a ticket. He or she will go home and put in the form online, upload the passport. What do you think a person like that feels? Are you able to actually feel what people feel who are different from you? Once you understand that, once you can feel that, that is the basis of understanding well-being. Now, if we think about the future of well-being, we of course think about children. And one of the issues is that I believe that we've been looking for many of the interventions in the wrong place. The feeling of looking in a light where you think actually we should be looking at another place. We have to go back to the source of some of the invisible issues. Now take performance in primary school. We know that literacy is a key indicator of performance. When there are shortcomings in primary schools, we tend to look at the primary school performance, fixing short-term shortcomings. But actually, we know that perhaps we should look before the systems, because we know that language and language development is the starting point of many of the competences in school. And they are laid in the first 1,000 days, and in some countries until 4 years old. So by looking at the issues that we need to address, at the policy interventions, we should look beyond the formal systems we get to understand, and to understand where the source lies. Now, I've been working on illiteracy issues for 20 years, and a blind spot in fighting illiteracy is actually vocabulary development. And this may sound so easy. But when you think of a child in the first 1,000 days, in the first 4 years before they go to school, it's actually achieved by parents talking to their children. And yet, looking at this, we have not come to realize the importance of this very simple human activity, talking. But a child who is not being talked to by their parents will lack the knowledge and the vocabulary that they need later on in life to understand their schools. And especially in this digital age, do we realize what the impact is on the lack of talking between people? If everything is done online, if everything is done in a transaction from words, it will not be the same. The child will not understand that a bottle of water is actually a bottle of water. So in school, when they start reading water, they will not know necessarily what it is. So let us not forget that we are people. So we can say that the quality of development is the basis of the quality of life. And interestingly, the WHO, the World Health Organization, has 3 aspects of quality of life. The 3F model: feelings, functions, and futures. Feelings of measuring how happy people are, functions, how well people are able to develop their functional possibilities, and futures, the perspectives for their future. And these 3 determine the quality of a childhood. And because children are the adults of the future, the quality of childhood largely determines the quality of society in the future, emotionally, socially, economically, technologically, and ecologically. And interestingly, the economist Richard Layard, he said, raising children into responsible adults is the pivotal contribution to society in both the social and economic realm. Now, to conclude, the cost of not humanizing policymaking, of not entering into genuine dialogue with genuine citizens as real equal stakeholders has huge consequences. Just to name a few. Take the intergenerational tensions that many countries see if we don't truly understand what both the young and the elderly really need and really want. We see a further loss of belonging and polarization of if people feel disconnected and left out by their leaders. Ineffective policies and systems, such as the ones that I mentioned on the literacy, will obviously have huge costs. And what about the important issues that we don't actually get to understand and we neglect them? If we neglect issues, then we will miss the trends of the future. And ultimately, and this is perhaps the most worrisome, if we don't understand the true impact of digitalization, it will lead to what American sociologist Sherry Turkle called a crisis of empathy. Now, empathy, we know, is the cornerstone of every inclusive society, or every society for that matter. If we lose empathy, we lose humanity. And if we fail to unravel the insights of real people, it will have real consequences in the real world. Think of that person going to the bank, taking public transport, going home, not being able to talk to their children, and feeling lost. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the sense of well-being that we need to imagine, we need to feel in order to think differently about how we measure well-being. And if you agree with this, understanding feelings of people and truly connecting to that and putting yourselves in the shoes of people who are so different from you, then we can only think of what Albert Einstein said: those with the privilege to know have the duty to act. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Royal Highness, for your enlightening speech. Thank you once again for that great speech. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the opening ceremony of the exhibition will begin in the lobby of the Grand Ballroom. So please feel free to take a tour of the exhibition. It will begin right away. Also, we'll have a short coffee break for about 30 minutes in the lobby. Coffee and snacks are ready outside for our participants. Please enjoy the refreshments, and the roundtable session will begin after the coffee session. So we ask for your continued interest and participation. Please enjoy your coffee, and we'll see you back here after 30 minutes. Thank you very much.